going to say a prayer today. Heavenly Father, protect us through all that should trouble us.
That is me. Why is this here? What is this doing up here?
Pour out a blessing among us, O Lord. Keep us near your heart.
Something is happening here, and I need your help.
When something like this happens to you, like, you don't trust reality anymore. I just remember waking up tied to that chair.
William and Kelsey, how are you doing? Nice to speak to you.
Good, nice to meet you.
Same to you, man.
Yeah. So, I mean, first of all, congratulations on the movie. It's a great movie. Before I actually talk about the film, I want to, when I go to watch kind of faux documentaries or found footage, I kind of have a love-hate relationship with those. They can either be they can really not work at all and don't feel authentic, or they can just kind of really nail kind of the realism and the authenticity. This one is the latter, so congratulations on that. But I'm quite curious what your kind of take was on the genre before you accepted to take on these parts. If we go with Kelsey first.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of the horror genre in general. I whenever the first like Paranormal Activities came out, that's when I first started getting interested in like the mockumentary. Well, no, I guess Blair Witch precedes that. So it was Blair Witch, and then like Paranormal Activity is like the subgenre of mockumentary. And as a viewer, I'm obsessed because nothing is scarier than like a real monster. And I feel like one of the best tools sometimes in horror movies is like, you know, for a long time you don't know what the monster is, and in this situation it is, you know, more realistic, and so whenever I was reading the script, I was like, this is so weird and different. And also just being a fan of the genre in general, I was like, I have to do this. Yeah. And then meeting Peter and Paul, I was just like, they're so nice, and they were so open to hear what we had to say about our characters. I signed on pretty shortly before we started filming. I think it was only a couple of weeks of prep. And they were just so game to like hear what I had to say about the character. And so just even talking to them, I was like, oh yeah, I got to do this.
Uh-huh. What about you, William? Were you kind of the same? Were you kind of hesitant maybe because of some of the films that hadn't kind of pulled it off? And what was it about this specific script that you knew that this was kind of one that would work with audiences in your mind?
Yeah, I mean, like I was kind of, I don't want to say ambivalent towards the genre of like found footage faux documentary. I loved Blair Witch and Paranormal Activity as a special place in my heart. Even like Hell House LLC was a great one for me. But I was largely just kind of like, not like I wasn't like tapped into that genre, I guess. And I was connected with this team, and they sent me the script, and I was just like, I read the script in one sitting, which I don't normally have the attention span to do, but I was so in love with it. You could feel that they put so much thought into it, and they had developed it to such a degree that this was a fully formed story, and they had put a lot of thought into like how they wanted to capture it. And I saw it as a great opportunity as an actor to, you know, play a complex character and have a lot of fun. And I did the audition like 40. I actually just looked back through my phone. I filmed my tape 42 times because I wanted it so bad. I filmed it 42 times in a row.
Wow.
That's how badly I wanted this role after I read the script. And I just read it over and over and over again. So I don't know.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but which of those 42 takes did you send? Did you end up sending the first one in the end?
I think I sent like it was kind of the audition was a scene in which my character Lucas is unraveling in a sense. And so I think like the later ones where like your brain starts to turn to mush.
You like David Finchered yourself into just losing your mind.
A little bit, like, and I had a friend with me who was like really analytical and was like, nope, not like there's this transitional moment right here. We're gonna find that, you know. So it was like through that audition that I think kind of like was first starting to like study the character in a sense.
Brilliant. I mean, but at the same time, because it is kind of a false documentary and it's as kind of as grounded and authentic as possible with these characters, I'm quite curious how much of what you actually do and say was in the original script compared to when it came to shooting, because I mean, I've never made a film like this, but I imagine that making a kind of a faux documentary to get it as kind of gritty and raw and real as possible, you try and kind of go guerrilla and leave as much to the day. You know, was that how it worked out?
That is such a good question and a good point. That is how it worked out. That was one of the things that I loved most, again about Peter and Paul being so game is that they wrote a very detailed, well-written script, but it did change so much from when we read it and auditioned to when we were actually filming, because in order to stay true to the grounded performances, we kind of had to be like, I don't think I would say that, or I don't
Right.
think I would walk this way because like she's apprehensive and like what the fuck's over there, and like I think pretty quickly whenever they were just kind of letting us goof off and we kind of started to form this sibling relationship is they were just like, oh, that little moment that you guys did whenever we're between setups, like, yes, like that, I want that infused into these characters in this moments just to make it just more believable. So it changed quite a bit, and I'm just so grateful for them for not being like so sticklers into it needs to be this exact dialogue, because in order for something to be grounded, they need to feel so lived in. We're gonna say fuck a couple times,
Yeah.
when some of the stuff is happening.
Huh? Would you say that that Peter and Paul were as kind of Stanley Kubrick finicky and kind of making sure everything was perfect and maybe take 42 takes to make sure it was all right, or did they try and do as few shots as possible to make it as realistic as possible?
I think on that one, I don't think it was. I think they had like a sense of trust because this team was like very well suited for each other. The script was robust, so we knew everyone understood that the story was there, and it was kind of just on the day being like water and kind of seeing where it flowed and following the natural path as opposed
Right.
to being like, no, this is how it goes. It's like this and it's like this. So I remember in particular, there was one moment when we were filming a scene. Kelsey, you remember this probably, where there was like all of us in the room at my grandma's, and it's like maybe 2 or 3 pages of just like kind of dense dialogue. And we all kind of talked it out for a second, and we were like, okay. And then Peter and Paul and David went away for like 5 minutes, came back. They were like, streamlined the scene. It worked like 10 times better and it flowed. And that's what made it into the movie.
Mhm.
Yeah, they were great about sensing the energy. Like whenever a scene, if we kind of lost steam during it and it was just so too expositional, they were like not precious about it. I think also the fact that we're all indie filmmakers in our own right, and this was such an indie film. We didn't have a lot of time. We didn't have like we couldn't be precious about it because it's like we have to make our day because we have no money. Our producer is sleeping on an air mattress in an office somewhere. Like we're opening manwich cans with knives because we don't have can openers. Like I think the fact that we were just so indie about this film also lent itself to that process as well.
Sure. Yeah. And in a sense, you were kind of the filmmakers yourself because we experienced the whole thing through cameras and the kind of social media and viral videos, which it's kind of then filtered through you, especially through Kelsey's character. So I'm quite curious if that was new to you. I imagine it was kind of new to you to kind of have to tell a story, kind of both in front of and behind the camera, and kind of explaining to the audience what's going on at the same time. No.
Yeah, it was interesting. I am not a cinematographer and I don't have a great eye for it. So David Kuhn, our DP, he was actually, even though I was able to hold the camera for a lot of the shots and some of my stuff did end up making the final cut, a lot of that actually was very well planned out on David Kuhn's part. Before we would block a shot that I needed to physically carry the camera for, he and I would just go through it. And he was like, and then you need to hit this point and this point. And so it was kind of a mix of both, but it did lend itself in order to be kind of more in method with the character too, because I'm seeing it through the literal lens of like what my character is seeing. So that was really cool.
And similarly, William, I mean, obviously your character Lucas is kind of a YouTuber character. I'm quite curious if you prepared with anyone in specifically kind of in mind, if you use anything like a fact or fiction to kind of get the
Yeah.
kind of tone and get into the mindset of this kind of YouTuber character?
Yeah, I like Kelsey. I'm not a cinematographer, but I do like make a lot of films, and we shot a good chunk of this film on the Sony FX3, which I had a lot of like experience with. And so like doing a lot of indie filmmaking, I just like it felt very natural. You understand the like beats and how like a camera flows. And in the age of like content creation and YouTube and stuff like that, where you kind of like understand like attention span and how people want to consume and see something. So when you're making like a creepy video, like when Lucas finds the initial tape, that was just me with the camera walking through this barn. And I kind of was like, okay, what's the flow of this moment? It's nothing like too remarkable, but just being thoughtful of like, okay, this character is trying to like entertain in a sense. How would he kind of film this mundane, creepy barn? And how would he narratively kind of like reveal this first tape in this sort of way? I don't know if that answers your question.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. They give me 2 minutes. So just like one last question then. We can't not talk about kind of the importance of this small town in the film, because it's all about kind of how it magnifies morals and social pressures, all those kind of things. So I'm quite curious, what kind of religious and cultural landscape you kind of encountered when you went to Austin to shoot the film, and how that informed how you approached kind of the horror elements of the film.
Well, okay, yeah. So that's a great question. So we filmed in we filmed a little bit in Austin. We filmed in Salado, Texas, which is the house in which they live, in which Lucas lives, is in real life my grandma's property. And it's about an hour north of Austin. And so she has this like house and the barn where Endicott's like Salvation Hour is as well. So we filmed a lot of that on my family's property where I kind of grew up going a lot. And so that was a surreal experience. It's a very like, small town, it's Christian, but it's also like everyone there is pretty nice. I don't know. Like it was just, for me, it was a surreal like experience because of my like family history being tied to that place and my family being, Christian, and this movie's kind of Christian themes, all those things overlapping was like a very interesting perspective,
But
Yeah.
specifically about, sorry, no, I was just going to say about specifically kind of tying into the horror aspect of the story. Having lived there, kind of a lot of your youth there, how did you kind of correlate and juxtapose kind of this nice town that you knew and kind of bring the horror into it?
I mean, like, dude, Christianity and small towns are rife with horrifying kind of like history and stories. And there's a lot of like pageantry and I don't know. To me, it was like, it was completely natural because I've always had like kind of an outsider's perspective on that subject. I'm not myself very religious. So seeing like this kind of like when you watch Christianity growing up from an outside perspective, and then you make this movie where you're like immersed in it, I think it was interesting. It was fun.
No, you did a great job. But listen, they're giving me the wrap. So thank you so much for your time. I wish you all the very best of luck when the film comes out in December, and hopefully get to speak to you again sometime soon, guys.
Thank you so much, Howard.
All right. Thanks very much for speaking to me. Take care. Bye now.
Did you feel it? That's the blessing.